Commander Vexthra clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among the Kethvar species. 3 cycles of war against the humans, and still these soft-skinned bipeds surprised him. Not in good ways, mind you. More like the way a defective plasma grenade surprises you right before it takes your arm off. "Bring the prisoner forward," he hissed through his translator, the mechanical voice carrying none of the elegant menace of his native tongue. The detention chamber aboard the flagship Void's Embrace hummed with the low thrum of containment fields. Vexthra had seen countless human prisoners over the years. They usually fell into 2 categories, the ones who wept and begged, or the ones who spat defiance until their last breath. This one. She just sat there, perfectly still, like she was waiting for a transport shuttle instead of an interrogation that would likely end with her molecular structure being redistributed. The human was unremarkable by their standards. Medium height, brown hair pulled back in what their military called a regulation bun, skin bearing the pale complexion of someone who spent too much time in recycled air. Her uniform was torn and scorched, missing most of its insignia. Standard Terra Coalition marine fatigues, if Vexthra's intelligence briefings were accurate. What caught his attention wasn't what she wore, but how she wore it. No trembling, no darting glances seeking escape routes. Just that infuriating human calm that had cost the Kethvar Dominion so many ships, so many warriors, so much pride. "State your designation," Vexthra commanded, his 4 arms folded in what he hoped appeared intimidating. With humans, it was hard to tell. They found the strangest things frightening and the most terrifying things amusing. The prisoner looked up. Her eyes were blue, he noted, like the frozen methane seas of Kethvar Prime. Marine Corporal Elena Vasquez, service number 7749 Delta Romeo. Her voice carried no emotion, just the mechanical recitation of someone following protocol. Vasquez. Vexthra tested the alien syllables. "Your vessel was destroyed 3 rotations ago. You were the sole survivor of a crew of 47. 48, she corrected quietly. Vexthra's secondary eyes narrowed. "Pardon?" "Massa de. 48 crew members. You missed Ensign Torres in your count." The commander felt his gill slits flutter with irritation. Trust a human to correct their captor's arithmetic during an interrogation. Very well. 48. All dead but you. How fortunate. Something flickered across Vasquez's face. Not fear, not anger. Something colder. Yeah, real lucky. Indeed. Vexthra activated his personal datapad, scrolling through the intelligence reports. The TCS Defiant was conducting reconnaissance in the outer veil when our patrol intercepted it. Your captain chose to fight rather than surrender. Foolish, but typical of your species. Captain Morrison always said we don't leave anyone behind. And yet he left you. He died fighting. We all did, in our own way. Vexthra circled the restraint chair, his taloned feet clicking against the deck plating. Standard intimidation tactics learned from decades of interrogating various species. Humans, unfortunately, had proven frustratingly resistant to psychological pressure. They possessed an almost supernatural ability to compartmentalize trauma and maintain operational effectiveness under extreme duress. It was, frankly, annoying. You were found in an escape pod, unconscious, half dead from radiation exposure. Our medical bay spent considerable resources keeping you alive. Should I thank you? The sarcasm in her voice made Vexthra's mandibles twitch. You should be grateful. Many of my subordinates advocated for spacing you immediately. And yet here I am enjoying your delightful hospitality. Here you are, he agreed, which brings us to the pertinent question. What was the Defiant's true mission in the outer veil? Vasquez met his gaze steadily. Reconnaissance. Like you said. Reconnaissance of what, specifically? Whatever was out there to reconnect with. Another correction that wasn't really a correction. Vexthra was beginning to suspect this human was playing with him. The outer veil contains nothing but dead systems and asteroid fields. Hardly worth the risk of sending a heavy cruiser. Maybe you missed something. The Kethvar Dominion has surveyed every system in this sector. There is nothing of strategic value. Then I guess we were just sightseeing. Vex Thra slammed his primary fist against the bulkhead, the sound echoing through the chamber. Several smaller species might have flinched. Vasquez didn't even blink. Your insolence serves no purpose, human. We know your coalition is planning something. Our intelligence networks have detected unusual fleet movements, encrypted communications, resource allocations that suggest a major operation. Sounds serious. It is serious, which is why you will tell me what I need to know, or I will be forced to employ less conversational methods of extraction. Vasquez tilted her head slightly. You mean torture? I mean enhanced interrogation techniques. Right, torture with a fancy name. You guys really love your euphemisms, don't you? The human's casual dismissal of his threats was simultaneously infuriating and oddly impressive. Most prisoners, faced with the prospect of neural extraction or synaptic manipulation, showed at least some sign of distress. This one acted like they were discussing the weather. Perhaps you do not understand the severity of your situation, Vex Thra said, leaning closer. You are alone, millions of light years from home, aboard a ship carrying enough firepower to glass a continent. Your coalition cannot help you. Your comrades cannot save you. You have nothing and no one. I have my duty. Your duty? Vex Thra laughed, the sound harsh and grating through the translator. To whom? Your dead captain? Your destroyed ship? Your distant government that probably assumes you're already dead? To my species. The simple statement, delivered without drama or emphasis, somehow carried more weight than any passionate declaration. Vex Thra found himself momentarily speechless, which was embarrassing for someone whose primary function involved extracting information through verbal manipulation. Your species, he repeated. The same species that has been at war with the Dominion for 3 cycles. The same species that refuses to acknowledge Kethvar superiority. The same species that persists in this futile resistance despite being outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched in every possible way. That's the one. Why? The question slipped out before Vex Thra could stop it. Not part of the interrogation protocol, not strategically relevant, just genuine curiosity about these baffling creatures who insisted on fighting wars they couldn't win. Vasquez studied him for a long moment. You really want to know? I am curious about human psychology. It's simple. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten. Vex Thra felt his gill slits flutter again, but this time with something that might have been amusement. That seems accurate. Plus we're stubborn, really stubborn, like aggressively stubborn, the kind of stubborn that makes us keep fighting even when fighting is the worst possible tactical decision. This is not tactical intelligence. No, but it's true intelligence, the kind that might help you understand what you're really up against. Something in her tone made Vex Thra pause. There was an undercurrent there, something that suggested layers beneath the surface banter. Explain. You want to know about the Defiance mission. Fine, we were reconnaissance, but not looking for targets or strategic assets. Vasquez shifted in her restraints, the motion drawing attention to her left arm. We were looking for something else entirely. What? Proof. Stroof. Of what? Vasquez smiled, and for the first time since the interrogation began, Vex Thra felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the kind of smile that suggested the person wearing it knew something you didn't, and that something was probably going to ruin your entire day. Proof that humans are exactly as stupid and stubborn as we appear to be. Before Vex Thra could respond, his communication implant chimed with an urgent signal. Priority Alpha, Fleet Command. Hold that thought, he muttered, activating the secure channel. Admiral Kriegsnall's voice filled his auditory processors, tight with barely controlled panic. "Commander, we have a situation. Long-range sensors are detecting massive gravitational distortions in the outer veil. Something big is coming through hyperspace." Vexthra felt his tertiary heart skip a beat. "Coalition reinforcements?" "Negative. The energy signatures don't match any known human technology." "Commander, whatever's coming, it's larger than anything in our databases." The transmission cut off, leaving Vexthra staring at his prisoner. Vasquez was still smiling that unsettling smile. "But expecting company?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "You could say that. What's coming, human?" Vasquez leaned back in her restraints, looking for all the world like someone who had just won a particularly satisfying game of chess. "You know, Commander, you were right about one thing. I am alone millions of light years from home, with no way for my coalition to help me." "Then what?" "But here's the thing about humans you might have missed in all those intelligence briefings." She rolled up her left sleeve with some difficulty, the restraints limiting her movement. "We don't always fight alone." Vexthra looked at her exposed forearm and felt his world shift on its axis. Branded into her flesh, raised and deliberately scarred, was a symbol he recognized from the deepest, most classified intelligence files. A symbol that represented not humanity's allies, but something far more dangerous. Something the Dominion had spent decades trying to deny, suppress, or explain away. The mark of the Terran Auxiliary Corps. The humans who had gone beyond their own species for help. "Impossible," he whispered. "You guys really need to update your intelligence networks," Vasquez said conversationally. "We've been working with them for over a year now. Mutual Defense Pact, technology exchange, the whole diplomatic package. The Dominion eliminated the architects millennia ago. They cannot." "Eliminated? Or just convinced them to go somewhere else and wait?" The ship's emergency klaxons began wailing, filling the detention chamber with their urgent song. Through the observation ports, Vexthra could see the familiar distortion patterns of massive objects dropping out of hyperspace. Ships, dozens of them, but not human ships. Architecture that defied conventional understanding. Vessels that seemed to bend space around themselves, their hulls bearing the distinctive mathematical patterns that had once terrorized the galaxy before the Dominion's rise to power. "They left because they chose to leave," Vasquez continued, apparently unbothered by the chaos erupting around them. "Oh, not because you made them. And now they're back, with some new friends who really don't appreciate being shot at." Vexthra's communication implant exploded with chatter. Damage reports, tactical assessments, panic-laden updates from across the fleet. Words like impossible technology and overwhelming force and request immediate evacuation filled the channel. "This is a trick," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No trick, just really, really good timing." Vasquez looked down at the brand on her arm with something that might have been pride. "You see, when the Defiant was conducting reconnaissance, we weren't looking for Dominion assets. We were confirming coordinates for a little family reunion." The ship shuddered as something massive struck their shields. Emergency lighting bathed the detention chamber in red, and Vexthra could feel the deck plating vibrating under his feet. "You wanted to know about human psychology?" Vasquez asked, her voice cutting through the noise. "Here's the thing about us. We're not just stupid and stubborn. We're also really, really good at making friends with people everyone else thought were extinct." Another impact, stronger this time. The lights flickered, and somewhere in the distance, Vexthra could hear the distinctive whine of failing containment systems. "The architects have been waiting for someone to ask for their help," she continued. "Turns out all it took was a species too stupid to know they were asking for the impossible." Vexthra stared at the brand on her arm, his mind racing through the implications. If the architects had truly returned, if they had allied with humanity, then everything the Dominion believed about the balance of power in the galaxy was wrong. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. Vasquez met his gaze, and for the first time since the interrogation began, her expression was completely serious. Unconditional surrender of all Dominion forces in this sector. Immediate cessation of hostilities against coalition territories, and safe passage for every human prisoner currently held in Dominion custody. That's impossible. The Dominion Council will never. Commander. Her voice was gentle, almost sympathetic. Look out that window and tell me what's impossible anymore. Vexthra turned toward the observation port. In the distance, silhouetted against the stars, he could see the impossible made manifest. Ships that moved like living things, their hulls rippling with energy patterns that shouldn't exist. Technology that the Dominion had spent centuries trying to understand and failing. And behind them, barely visible but definitely present, the familiar angular shapes of human vessels. Not the sleek cruisers and destroyers he was used to fighting, but something new. Something that incorporated design elements from both species, creating hybrid vessels that looked like they had been grown rather than built. How long? He asked. How long what? How long have you been planning this? Vasquez considered the question. Honestly? About 3 minutes after your first ship opened fire on a coalition patrol. We're really big on the whole proportional response concept. The ship shuddered again, and this time the lights stayed off for several seconds before the emergency systems kicked in. You should probably contact your admiral, she suggested. This is the kind of situation where good communication can prevent a lot of unnecessary casualties. Vexthra activated his comm implant with a heavy heart. Admiral, this is Commander Vexthra. I believe we need to discuss terms. Terms? Commander, we're under attack by unknown forces using impossible technology. This is not the time for. Sir, with respect, this is exactly the time. The prisoner has information that changes our tactical assessment. A pause. Explain. Vexthra looked at Vasquez, who gave him an encouraging nod. Sir, I believe we may have seriously underestimated human capabilities. Admiral Crixnall's response came through layers of static and what sounded suspiciously like screaming in the background. Underestimated. Commander, half my fleet is reporting system failures they can't explain, and sensors are picking up energy readings that violate at least 6 fundamental laws of physics. Yes, sir, about that. Vexthra glanced at Vasquez, who was now examining her fingernails with the casual interest of someone waiting for a particularly boring meeting to end. I believe our guest might be able to provide some clarity on the situation. Put her on. Vexthra hesitated. Standard protocol dictated that prisoners were never allowed direct communication with Fleet Command. On the other hand, standard protocol hadn't anticipated ships that could apparently rewrite reality on demand showing up to ruin everyone's day. He activated the external speaker. You're connected to Admiral Crixnall, commander of the 7th Fleet. Vasquez straightened slightly, adopting what Vexthra now recognized as her official business posture. Admiral, this is Marine Corporal Elena Vasquez. I'm authorized to negotiate on behalf of the Terran Coalition and our partners. Partners. The Admiral's voice carried the kind of skepticism that came from 3 decades of military service and a healthy distrust of anything that deviated from established tactical doctrine. The architects, sir, though they prefer the term gardeners these days. Apparently they've been doing some rebranding while they were away. A long pause. In the background, Vexthra could hear the distinctive sound of a Kethvar officer having what humans would probably call a nervous breakdown. The architects are extinct, Admiral Crixnall said finally. With respect, sir, extinction is more of a temporary condition for them. They've gotten very good at the whole strategic withdrawal followed by triumphant return thing. Impossible. Admiral, are you currently looking at your tactical display? Another pause. Yes. What does it tell you about possibility? The silence stretched long enough that Vexthra began to wonder if the communication link had failed. When the Admiral's voice returned, it carried a note of defeat that made the commander's gill slits flutter with sympathy. What are your terms? Vasquez smiled, but this time it wasn't the unsettling expression from earlier. This was the smile of someone who had just won a war without firing a shot. I'm glad you asked. She settled back in her restraints, apparently preparing to enjoy herself. First, immediate cessation of all hostile actions against coalition forces, territories and personnel. That includes me, obviously, since being held prisoner counts as a hostile action. Agreed. Second, withdrawal of all Dominion forces from the neutral zone. You guys have been creeping across that border for months, and frankly, it's been getting on our nerves. Vexthra watched his admiral's dreams of territorial expansion crumble in real time. Agreed. Third, establishment of formal diplomatic relations between the Dominion and the coalition. Embassy exchanges, trade agreements, the whole diplomatic song and dance. That will require approval from the Dominion Council. Which brings us to point 4. Vasquez's smile widened. Your new friends outside? They're really interested in having a conversation with your government. Something about old grievances and property damage claims dating back a few thousand years. Through the observation port, Vexthra could see one of the architect vessels moving closer to the flagship. It was beautiful in the way that natural disasters were beautiful, all flowing curves and impossible angles that made his eyes hurt if he looked too long. Property damage. Admiral Crix now sounded genuinely confused. Well, when you eliminated them the first time, you sort of blew up a few hundred of their worlds. They've been keeping track of the real estate values. With interest. Compound interest. That was millennia ago. Time moves differently when you're not bound by linear causality. They've had plenty of opportunity to calculate the exact monetary value of their losses, down to the last credit. Vexthra felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. The Dominion's entire economy was built on the resources extracted from former architect territories. If those claims were legally valid. How much? He asked quietly. Vasquez tilted her head, apparently listening to something only she could hear. The brand on her arm began to glow with a soft, pulsing light that made Vexthra's tertiary eyes water. They're saying approximately 17 trillion standard credits, plus emotional distress damages, plus punitive damages for the whole genocide thing, plus administrative fees for having to come back and sort this mess out personally. The number hung in the air like a particularly unpleasant smell. 17 trillion credits was more than the gross domestic product of the entire Dominion. It was more money than actually existed in the galactic economy. We don't have 17 trillion credits, Admiral Crix now said weakly. I know, that's why they're prepared to accept alternative arrangements, such as complete restructuring of Dominion society, replacement of your current government with a more cooperative administration, and mandatory cultural sensitivity training for your entire military. Vexthra's mandibles clicked involuntarily. Cultural sensitivity training? They're very big on education. Apparently the whole trying to exterminate ancient civilizations thing is considered a social faux pas in most enlightened societies. The ship shuddered again, but this time it wasn't from weapons fire. Through the observation port, Vexthra could see tendrils of energy reaching out from the nearest architect vessel, interfacing directly with the Void's Embrace's hull. The lights flickered, then stabilized at a warmer, somehow more pleasant frequency. What are they doing? He asked. Upgrading your systems. Your power grid is apparently charmingly primitive by their standards. They're installing some basic improvements. Think of it as a goodwill gesture. Upgrading to what? Oh, just some minor enhancements. More efficient energy conversion, improved structural integrity, better life support systems. It's nothing too fancy. Although I think they're also installing universal translators that actually work properly, which should help with the whole diplomatic process. Vexthra's personal datapad chimed with an incoming message. The text was in perfect, idiomatic Kethvar, despite being transmitted from an obviously alien source. Greetings, Commander Vexthra. We apologize for the inconvenience, but your species' tendency toward aggressive expansion has necessitated our return to active galactic affairs. Please do not be alarmed by the modifications we are making to your vessel. We are simply ensuring that future conversations proceed more smoothly. The message was signed with a symbol that hurt to look at directly. "They're in our computers," he said. "They're in everything," Vasquez corrected cheerfully. "That's kind of their thing. They don't really distinguish between technology and biology the way we do. To them, your ship is just another form of life that happens to be really good at moving through space. That's terrifying." "Nah, it's actually pretty convenient once you get used to it. You should see what they can do with a malfunctioning coffee maker." Admiral Crixnall's voice cut through their conversation, carrying the tone of someone who had just received very bad news. "Commander, I'm getting reports from across the fleet. These gardeners, they're interfacing with every ship simultaneously. Our entire tactical network is compromised." "Compromised isn't really the right word," Vasquez interjected. "More like optimized. They're fixing all the bugs in your code. Your communication systems should be running about 300% more efficiently now." "We didn't ask for improvements." "Trust me, you needed them. Your encryption protocols were so outdated, my grandmother could have cracked them with a pocket calculator." Vexthra's datapad chimed again. This time the message included what appeared to be a complete technical analysis of every system aboard the Void's Embrace, along with detailed recommendations for improvement. The document was 17,000 pages long and had been compiled in approximately 30 seconds. "This is impossible," he muttered. "You keep using that word," Vasquez observed. "I don't think it means what you think it means. How are they doing this?" "Well, according to the technical briefing I got before my mission, they exist in about 11 dimensions simultaneously. Most of their consciousness operates in spaces that don't technically exist from our perspective. What we're seeing is just the part of them that bothers to interact with three-dimensional reality. And they allied with humanity because..." Vasquez shrugged. "We asked nicely. Also, we brought cookies to the first diplomatic meeting." Cookies. Cookies. Chocolate chip. Apparently, they'd never encountered refined sugar before. It was a real hit. Vexthra felt reality shift around him in ways that had nothing to do with exotic physics. The idea that the fate of galactic civilization might hinge on baked goods was somehow more disturbing than ships that could rewrite the laws of physics. "What happens now?" Admiral Crixnall asked. "Now you contact the Dominion Council and explain the new political situation. The gardeners are prepared to be very reasonable, provided everyone acknowledges that the old way of doing things is officially over. And if the Council refuses..." The lights in the detention chamber dimmed slightly, and for a moment, Vexthra could swear he heard something that sounded like gentle laughter echoing through the ship's corridors. "Admiral, with respect, I don't think refusal is really an option anymore. The gardeners have been watching galactic politics for millennia. They know exactly how to make their point in ways that everyone will understand. Meaning they've just demonstrated that they can take control of your entire fleet without firing a single shot. Your weapons don't work on them, your shields can't stop them, and your technology might as well be stone knives and bearskins compared to what they're capable of." Vexthra's communication implant crackled with an incoming transmission. The voice that emerged was unlike anything he'd ever heard, carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions his auditory processors weren't designed to interpret. "Greetings, beings of the Kethvar Dominion. We are the entities you have designated as architects, though we prefer our chosen designation of gardeners. We have returned to address certain irregularities in the current galactic political structure." The voice paused, and in that silence Vexthra could feel the weight of incomprehensible intelligence focusing its attention on their small corner of space. "We harbor no ill will toward your species. However, your recent actions have created conditions that threaten the stability of this region. We have therefore entered into a mutual assistance pact with the Terran Coalition to address these concerns. Another pause. This time Vex Thra was certain he could hear the sound of reality being gently adjusted to accommodate new possibilities. We offer the Dominion a choice. Accept the terms proposed by Corporal Vasquez and begin the process of peaceful coexistence, or continue your current policies and face the consequences of defying forces beyond your comprehension. What consequences? Admiral Kriegsnall asked, his voice barely above a whisper. We will be very disappointed in you. The simple statement, delivered in that impossible voice, somehow managed to be more terrifying than any threat of violence or destruction. There was something in the tone that suggested disappointment from these beings would be far worse than mere annihilation. I need to contact the Council, the Admiral said. Of course, you have one standard day to provide your response. We will wait. The transmission ended, leaving the detention chamber filled with the kind of silence that follows profound revelations. Vasquez stretched as much as her restraints would allow. Well, that went better than expected. Better. Vex Thra stared at her. Your allies just threatened to be disappointed in us. Trust me, you don't want to find out what happens when they're disappointed. I heard they once erased an entire star system from history because the local government was rude to their diplomatic envoy. Erased from history? Yeah, like it never existed. Everyone forgot it was ever there. The only reason we know about it is because one of their junior staff members kept a backup copy in case they wanted to put it back later. Vex Thra felt his gill slit seize up. Did they? Put it back? Nah. Turns out nobody really missed it. The ship's intercom crackled to life. All hands, this is Admiral Kriegsnall. Prepare for immediate departure to Dominion Central Command. We have a situation that requires urgent attention from the Council. Vasquez looked up at the speaker with interest. Mind if I tag along? I've never seen the Dominion capital. You're a prisoner of war. He was a prisoner of war. I think my status just got upgraded to diplomatic liaison when my friends showed up. Vex Thra considered this. Given the current circumstances, arguing about prisoner status seemed remarkably pointless. I suppose I could arrange for more comfortable accommodations. That's very thoughtful of you. Also, I don't suppose you have any coffee aboard this ship. The interrogation was interesting, but I could really use some caffeine. Yes, I believe we can arrange something. Vasquez smiled, and this time it was the kind of smile that suggested the universe might not be ending after all. Excellent. Oh, and Commander? Yes. When we get to your capital, you might want to warn them that the gardeners are planning to attend the negotiations personally. Is that significant? Well, they haven't been in normal space for about 3,000 years. They're very excited about the opportunity to stretch their legs, so to speak. Vex Thra had the sudden, horrible suspicion that the next few days were going to be very, very interesting. Outside the observation port, the impossible ships of the gardeners maintained their silent vigil, waiting with the patience of beings for whom time was merely another dimension to be navigated at will. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. And somewhere in the galactic core, the Dominion Council was about to receive the most important communication in the history of their civilization. Vex Thra just hoped they would be smart enough to listen. After all, the alternative was disappointment, and nobody wanted to disappoint the gardeners.